The power had been out since 4 a.m. Emily Whitaker stood in the darkened kitchen, soaked in sweat, gripping a flashlight between her teeth, while trying to twist open a can of baked beans. Her son Caleb lay asleep on the couch, a damp rag across his forehead. The old AC unit had finally died in the Tennessee heatwave, and Emily hadn't had time or money to replace it. The landlord stopped answering her texts 2 weeks ago. She hadn't slept in 3 nights. Her third job, overnight stocking at a discount grocery, barely paid enough to cover rent and daycare. The last time she'd filled up her car, she'd had to choose between gas and laundry quarters. She chose gas. Caleb wore a too small shirt to summer school, and no one said anything, but they looked. And then came the knock. A sharp rap at the door, too confident to be a neighbor, too early to be friendly. Emily grabbed the bat she kept under the sink. Not for the first time, she reminded herself that people got desperate in this part of town. And desperate people made dumb choices. When she cracked open the door, she found a man in a short-sleeved shirt and tie holding a clipboard. "Miss Whitaker," he asked, Southern accent smooth and rehearsed. "I've got a certified letter for you." She blinked. "Who from?" He checked his clipboard. "Harrington and Whitlow. Estate attorneys." Estate. That word hit her like ice water. She signed without thinking. Caleb stirred on the couch as she shut the door and tore the envelope open, hands trembling. The document inside was printed on cream paper with gold lettering. Fancy. Too fancy for anyone she knew. It started with, "To Emily Marie Whitaker, sole surviving niece of Eleanor Whitaker." Emily dropped into the kitchen chair, her legs gone numb. Aunt Eleanor. That woman. That cold, distant, judgmental woman who wore pearls at funerals and didn't hug her own blood. Emily remembered meeting her twice. Once at Emily's mother's funeral, where Eleanor shook her hand like she was closing a business deal. And once again, when Emily showed up pregnant at 19, and Eleanor told her stone-faced, "Some mistakes become burdens you carry for life." Now, out of nowhere, this woman had left Emily something in her will. A house. The Bramble Ridge property located in the Smoky Mountain foothills of eastern Tennessee. Emily's breath caught. She flipped to the back page. No mortgage. No debt. 60 acres of forest land and a house. The catch. She had to claim it in person within 30 days, or the property would be auctioned off by the county. If it's from her, Emily muttered, it can't be good news. Still, her heart beat faster. A house, even a broken-down shack, was more than she'd ever had. Maybe it was a mistake. Or maybe it was a beginning. Caleb sat up groggily. "Mama, why's your face look like that?" Emily smoothed the worry from her eyes. "You hungry for beans, or you want the last Pop-Tart?" He smiled. Pop-Tart. She handed it to him and stared out the cracked window where the sun had just started to claw its way through the sky. Somewhere miles from here, a house was waiting. Or a trap. Or both. That night after Caleb fell asleep, she called the only family who still pretended she existed, Lori Granger. Lori picked up on the second ring. "Wow. Haven't heard from you since the baby shower you skipped." Emily ignored the bait. "Eleanor left me something. A house. In the mountains." There was silence, then laughter. Harsh and tinny like glass breaking. "Wait. She left you Bramble Ridge, the forest house." "That's what the letter said. She really did it." Lori's voice darkened. Even dead, she knew how to twist the knife. "What are you talking about? That place is a joke. No plumbing, no power, mold, rot. Folks say it's cursed." Emily said nothing. Seriously, Lori continued, that house was where secrets went to die. She left it to you because you're the family embarrassment. You kept the baby, remember, you didn't follow the rules. Emily ended the call without another word. 3 days later, Emily stood at the edge of the forest, one hand gripping Caleb's and the other clutching a printed map. GPS had cut out miles ago. The old gate hung crooked with a rusted sign that barely read Bramble Ridge. The air smelled like moss and old rain. Pines rose like cathedrals on both sides of the narrow dirt road. The silence was thick enough to chew. Caleb whispered, "It's like something out of a storybook." Emily didn't answer. Her eyes were locked on the outline ahead, a hulking house hidden among the trees like a secret someone tried to bury. The wraparound porch sagged under years of weather and time. Shingles hung like broken teeth. Windows were black with grime. A vine had grown up one side like a scar. The front door hung open. Emily's gut clenched. "Do we gotta go in?" Caleb asked. She looked down at her son, freckle-faced, wide-eyed, trusting. "No," she said. "Not today." They turned back toward the car. Emily didn't speak until they reached the gate again. "I don't know what's in that house," she said quietly. "But if it's meant to scare me off, it's gonna have to try harder." Emily returned the next morning alone just after sunrise, her old Honda bumping along the dirt path like it knew how uncertain she was. Caleb had begged to come, but she'd promised him a trip to the ice cream truck later instead. This place, whatever it was, needed to be faced without his eyes on her. She didn't know what she'd find, or what she was even hoping to. All she knew was that something about Bramble Ridge refused to leave her mind. The woods were different in the morning. Still heavy, still ancient, but less menacing in the light. More expectant. The house stood just as they'd left it, sun slicing through the tall trees and glinting off the moss-streaked windows. The porch creaked under her boots like it was remembering the weight of footsteps. She paused at the open door. Yesterday, it had felt like a warning. Today, it felt like a challenge. Inside, the air was stale but dry. Dust hung like a fog in the shafts of morning light, cutting through cracks in the boarded windows. The layout was traditional, an old southern floor plan, with a grand central hallway parlor to the left, dining room to the right. Everywhere she turned, there were remnants of another life: china cabinets, still filled with delicate glassware, a piano in the corner, draped in a sheet yellowed with age. Someone had cared once, but not anymore. Emily tugged on a pair of work gloves and started exploring with more purpose. Upstairs, she found bedrooms still made as if someone had expected to return. Dresses hung limp in closets. A photo of a young girl in a lace collar rested on a dusty nightstand, the silver frame spotted with tarnish. In the smallest room, painted a faded butter yellow, something pulled her attention. The wallpaper had peeled near the baseboards, exposing old layers underneath. A child's desk sat under the window. She opened one drawer and found a worn leather journal, its cover stiff with time but intact. Inside, childish handwriting filled the pages, looping, and careful, Daddy says, "The secret room is ours. We don't talk about it. He says people wouldn't understand." Her pulse quickened. Emily flipped through more entries, each innocent on the surface, but threaded with something deeper. "Mama's birthday is our secret code." She closed the journal slowly, eyes drifting to the hallway outside. She'd noticed a strange section of wall near the kitchen, painted smooth but oddly shaped. No knob, no frame. Just a rectangle that didn't match the rest of the wall. Now she felt it calling. Emily went back downstairs. The kitchen was a time capsule of rusted appliances and cracked tile. But next to the pantry, that same stretch of wall waited. She ran her gloved hand along it, pressing. Hollow. Her fingers found a thin groove. Paint. Too many layers. She grabbed her pry bar from her bag. As she began scraping, something behind her shifted the floor, groaned. She turned sharply. A man stood in the doorway. Emily's heart jumped into her throat. She raised the pry bar instinctively. "Easy now," the man said, stepping back a pace. He wore a faded flannel work boots and a ball cap pulled low. Weathered face, deep lines, gray in his beard. "I'm not here to scare you. Name's Bo Jenkins. I live about half a mile east. Heard a car yesterday. Figured someone finally claimed this place." Emily lowered the bar just slightly. "You just walk into people's houses?" He smiled faintly. "Wasn't locked. Never is." She hesitated. You knew Eleanor Bo's smile vanished. Everybody in these hills knew Eleanor Whitaker. She kept to herself. Smart woman, sharp as a whip, and cold as January frost. Emily nodded slowly. "She left this place to me." "Then you're either real lucky," he said, eyes narrowing, "or real damned." Emily didn't answer. Bo stepped closer, peering toward the kitchen. "You found it already, huh?" "Found what?" He pointed at the wall she'd been scraping. "That ain't part of the original floor plan. I helped roof this place 20 years ago. That door, it wasn't supposed to be there." Emily stared at him. "What do you know about it?" Bo leaned against the frame, arms crossed. "I know Eleanor had a habit of locking things away. People too, if the stories are true. I know that when this place started falling apart, she hired no one local. Folks said she was hiding something. Something old. Something dangerous." Emily felt the journal burning in her back pocket. Bo's eyes softened. "I ain't saying you shouldn't be here. Just saying this house don't just sit there. It watches." The word sent a chill up her spine. "What does that mean?" He didn't answer right away. "It remembers," he said finally. "Places like this, they don't forget who they belong to." Emily looked back at the door. The outline was clearer now under the scraped paint. A hidden entrance, a secret room or a vault. She didn't know what lay behind it, but she was sure of one thing. It was never meant for just anyone to find. Bo started backing toward the door. "You want help, I'm around. But be careful what you open in that house." She watched him leave, then turned back to the wall. With more force now, she chipped away at the paint, the layers falling like dry leaves. Her arms ached. Her shirt clung with sweat. Finally, the door revealed itself, wooden, warped slightly, with a faint outline of a keyhole jammed with dried paint. No knob, no markings, just a way down. Emily pressed her forehead against the frame and whispered to herself, "What were you hiding, Eleanor?" From behind the door came silence, but it didn't feel empty. It felt patient. Emily returned to Bramble Ridge the next morning with a crowbar, a hammer, a flashlight, and the journal tucked inside her backpack, like a relic from a war she hadn't realized she was part of. Her nerves felt like exposed wires. Something about Bo's visit hadn't sat right, not because he frightened her, but because he hadn't seemed frightened enough. This house don't just sit there. It watches. That line followed her into her sleep. It wasn't just a spooky warning. It was a challenge. And Emily had lived her whole life being challenged by bills, by judgment, by a family that never once believed she could rise above what they called her mistake. She hadn't broken yet. She wouldn't now. Inside the house, the silence was louder than the birds outside. It settled on her shoulders like a weighted blanket, thick and pressing. She went straight to the door beside the kitchen. She'd cleared most of the paint yesterday, but today she wanted it gone down to bare wood. She needed to see what someone had worked so hard to erase. The journal lay open beside her as she worked the entry marked with a torn strip of fabric. Mama's birthday is our secret code. Daddy says it unlocks the room only meant for family. Emily remembered what Bo said the door wasn't part of the original house. That made it newer than the rest of the structure, but it looked old. Like someone had worked hard to make it look like it belonged. Someone who wanted it hidden in plain sight. The crowbar scraped loudly against the frame. Paint cracked. The edge of the door gave a little. She pulled harder. The wood groaned sharp and splintering. Then, with a final pop like a bone dislocating, the door cracked open and a burst of cold, dry air hit her in the face. She stepped back, heart hammering. A narrow staircase stretched down into pure blackness. Not even dust motes drifted in the beam of her flashlight. She took a breath and said aloud, "Secrets hide best in places no one dares to look." Then she descended. The steps were stone-worn smooth by time. The air grew colder with each one. At the bottom, her flashlight flickered across what looked nothing like the musty, cobwebbed cellar she'd expected. It was pristine. The walls were cut stone fitted so tightly she could barely see the seams. The floor was smooth concrete swept clean. No mold, no decay, no smell of mildew, just something metallic, faint and sharp like cold iron and memory. At the far end of the room, her light caught a steel door. Heavy, clean, modern, out of place. She stepped closer. It had a combination lock, one of those old-fashioned circular kinds you'd see in a school locker, only thicker built for keeping something inside. Carved into the metal just beneath the dial were 4 numbers etched rough, like they'd been scratched with a knife. 11, 29, 50. 3. Her fingers went numb. She fumbled for the journal and flipped to the dog-eared page, Mama's birthday. Daddy says it's the most important day to remember. Emily stared at the numbers again. November 29th, 1953. A date. A code. Her hands shook as she placed her fingers on the dial. She twisted slowly, counting clicks like heartbeats. The mechanism inside groaned faintly, then click. The door creaked open. Emily's breath left her chest in a single gasp. Inside the room gleamed. Metal shelves lined the walls, and on each shelf sat boxes, jars, velvet pouches, dozens of them. She stepped forward, grabbed the closest item, a purple velvet bag, and opened it. Diamonds, rough uncut, each the size of her thumbnail. She dropped the bag in shock. It hit the floor with a muted thud, the contents spilling like shattered stars. Her knees gave out and she sat hard on the cold concrete. Another jar. More diamonds. A wooden box. Diamonds and what looked like emeralds. Shelf after shelf labeled with dates, some as old as the 1930s, others recent. In the center of the room was a heavy desk. On top sat a single manila envelope. It had her name on it. Not to whom it may concern, not the heir of just Emily Whitaker. She stared at it like it might vanish. Then, with trembling hands, she tore it open. Inside was a letter. The handwriting was sharp, neat, unmistakably Eleanor's. Emily, if you're reading this, then you were brave enough to look where others wouldn't. Strong enough to ignore the mockery. Smart enough to question the story you were told. That's why I chose you. These stones were your great-grandfathers smuggled from South Africa during the Depression. Illegal, maybe. Immoral, depends who you ask. Either way, they've been hidden from the government and the family ever since. Each generation added to the hoard, believing it would be their safety net. It became their curse instead. I watched our family fall apart over things they didn't even know they had. They valued money more than love, reputation more than honesty. They mocked you for choosing motherhood over appearances. They left you out. I saw it all. I was one of them once, but I wanted to leave something behind that mattered. And you reminded me who I used to be before the inheritance, before the lies, before the rot set in. Use it if you must. But more than that, protect it. Transform it. Let it become something they never could imagine, something good. And above all, Emily, don't become like us. Eleanor Emily read the letter 3 times before she could move. She sat there surrounded by wealth so obscene it made her feel small, almost erased. $15 million, maybe more. She could take it all and disappear. She could pay off every debt, buy a new house, vanish into a quiet life where no one whispered about her or Caleb again. But then she heard Eleanor's voice, sharp and clear. Don't become like us. Emily wiped her face, stood slowly, and looked around. She couldn't decide if this was a blessing or a burden, but she knew one thing for certain. Whatever happened next, it would define everything. Emily didn't sleep that night. She lay in bed, staring at the cracked ceiling. The letter from Eleanor clenched in one hand, her mind spinning like tires in mud. The diamonds were real. She had touched them, held them, felt their weight, not just physical, but moral, historical. They weren't just a windfall. They were a secret that had poisoned her family for generations. At dawn, she returned to Bramble Ridge. She took only 3 stones, small, raw, no larger than peas, just enough to confirm what she already knew in her gut: they were worth a fortune. She wrapped them in a cloth napkin and tucked them into her jacket pocket. The rest she left behind. She locked the vault, spun the dial, and resealed the basement door with every ounce of resolve she had. Let them rot in the dark a little longer. That afternoon, she sat on a wooden bench outside the town's only post office, the mountains rising like silent judges behind her. The gems weighed heavy in her pocket, even though they couldn't have totaled more than 2 ounces. She didn't know where else to go. Not a bank, not a pawn shop. Not yet. Instead, she pulled out her phone and called a number she hadn't dialed in over 8 years. It rang twice, then clicked. Reverend Amos Carter. She swallowed hard. Hi, it's Emily Whitaker. You might not remember me. My mom used to bring me to your Sunday school. I was the kid who always stole extra communion wafers. A pause, then a warm chuckle. Emily. Lord have mercy, I haven't heard that name in a long while. How's your mama? She passed 2 years ago. I'm sorry to hear that. She had a quiet strength, your mama. I need to talk to someone. Someone I trust. And someone who knew. Eleanor. That changed the air between them. The pause was longer this time. You at Bramble Ridge, Emily's chest tightened. Yeah, she left it to me. Another pause. Then meet me at St. Luke's. Office behind the chapel. 1 hour. St. Luke's Baptist Church hadn't changed in 20 years. Same chipped white steeple, same bell tower that hadn't rung in at least a decade. Inside it smelled like lemon oil wood polish, and something old but good, like memory, that hadn't turned bitter. Reverend Amos was waiting in a worn leather chair, his Bible resting on a cluttered desk. His white shirt was rolled at the sleeves, his suspenders sagging under the weight of long years. He smiled when she entered. Still look like you're ready to fight the world, Emily. I don't know what I look like right now, she admitted, but it's probably not peaceful. He gestured to the chair across from him. Peace comes later. She sat down, pulled the napkin from her pocket, and unwrapped the 3 stones onto his desk. Amos didn't move, didn't gasp, didn't reach for them. He just looked. Then he exhaled long and slow. "I always knew she was hiding something," he said quietly. "You knew, Eleanor. I knew the parts of her she let people see." He leaned back. "She gave a lot to the church anonymously, paid for the new roof 5 years ago, funded the women's shelter back in '09, all without ever stepping foot through that door." Emily nodded. "She didn't strike me as the charitable type. She wasn't. Not naturally. But guilt carves strange paths." Emily leaned forward, voice trembling. "Why'd she hide it all? Why not just use it or give it away?" Amos's gaze darkened. Because she was afraid, not just of the law or the family, of what it would turn her into. He tapped the desk with one finger. "You don't seal a door like that unless you're hiding something worth the sin." Emily closed her eyes. "She said she left it to me because I wouldn't be corrupted, because I chose love over money." That sounds like her, Amos said. Dramatic to the end. "I want to do something with it. Not run, not hoard it. Build something. Make it mean something." He smiled, the kind that comes from deep approval. "Then you're already doing better than most." "But I don't know where to start," she said. "Every time I close my eyes, I see those shelves, and I think about how many people I could help. But I don't know how to move without making a mess." Amos nodded slowly. "Then don't move fast. Move true. There's a lawyer I know. Real quiet, real sharp. He's handled some unusual estates. I'll call him." She stared at the stones on the desk. "Do you think keeping it a secret makes me like them?" "No," he said. "Keeping it a secret until you know how to use it that makes you wise. It's not the treasure that corrupts. It's the rush." Emily wrapped the stones back in the napkin, but not before looking at them one more time. They glittered even in the low light of the office. Not beautiful, just potent. Potential waiting to be shaped. That night back in the house, Emily didn't go down to the vault. Instead, she walked room by room with a notebook and a flashlight. She documented damage, measured corners, sketched the bones of the house, not for a sale, for a plan. An idea had started to take root, one that had nothing to do with escape and everything to do with rebuilding. Not just for her, but for people like her. Single mothers, forgotten women, kids who slept in heat waves and wore too small shirts to school. A place to heal, to grow. She sat at the dusty kitchen table, flashlight standing upright in a jar, and began to write a list. Roof, plumbing, windows, licensing, funding. The diamonds wouldn't be the point. They'd be the seed. The real treasure would be what grew from them. And maybe, just maybe, this house once meant to bury her could become something that saved others. The office was tucked behind a pawn shop on the edge of a quiet county line with no sign out front and only a buzzer to announce your presence. Just the kind of place Reverend Carter would trust. Emily parked 2 streets over and walked the rest of the way, clutching a plain envelope in her hand like it held contraband. Inside were the 3 stones wrapped in tissue paper and silence. The receptionist didn't ask many questions, just gave her a clipboard and motioned her toward a cracked leather sofa. The walls were lined with old legal books and faded degrees. It smelled like dust and secrets. 10 minutes later, a tall, narrow man with glasses and steel gray hair stepped out of a back office and gestured for her to come in. "You must be Ms. Whitaker," he said. "I'm Samuel Kessler. Reverend Carter said you'd be calling." Emily nodded, her throat dry. She handed him the envelope without a word. He opened it gently and raised one eyebrow. Do you mind? He asked. She shook her head. He pulled out a small loop from his jacket and examined the stones under a warm desk lamp one at a time without speaking. Finally, he looked up. These are very real, very uncut, and very old. I'd estimate around 40,000 apiece, maybe more depending on the market and the buyer. Emily blinked. Each, he nodded. And I suspect you have more. She didn't answer. He smiled thinly. You don't need to confirm. I've been doing this a long time. I know a sample when I see one. Emily leaned forward. Can you help me sell them quietly? I can, he said. But let me be clear. Stones like these attract attention. Not from the law necessarily, unless they're tied to something criminal, which from what Reverend Carter hinted they're not. But from people. Greedy people. Entitled people. Emily felt a cold bloom of dread. Family. Kessler gave a small, knowing smile. That's usually how it starts. She looked at the stones again. They were dazzling. They could change everything. And they could ruin everything, too. I don't want to be rich, she said. I want to be useful. Kessler sat back in his chair. Then let's be smart. Sell a few, spread the timing, build a paper trail. We'll say they came from a forgotten inheritance. An old piece of life insurance. Nothing flashy. Keep your name quiet. Sound good, she nodded. Then I'll call you in 3 days with the first buyer. Cashier's check, clean and discreet. She stood, legs trembling slightly. Thank you. He raised an eyebrow. Don't thank me yet. Just be careful. Because here's the truth, Ms. Whitaker. He tapped the envelope gently. You always smell like money before you show it. Back at Bramble Ridge, the renovations began small. Emily started with the roof essential for surviving another Tennessee winter. She hired a contractor from 2 towns over, a quiet man named Marcus, who didn't ask questions and didn't gossip. The windows came next. Then the plumbing. She paid in cash, small chunks at a time. No paper trail linking back to diamonds. The cover story was clean. A long-lost aunt had passed, left her life insurance. No one questioned it at first, but small towns had long memories and sharp noses. 3 weeks in the whispers started. Emily heard them at the feed store when she bought supplies. Funny how the broke girls fixin' up that ghost house. Heard them in line at the grocery store. Maybe she married rich on the side. Then came the visitors. Lori was the first. She rolled up in a Lexus SUV with New York plates and designer sunglasses too big for her face. She stepped out like she owned the place, her heels sinking into the soft earth. Emily, she said, saccharine sweet. Wow, you're really fixing this dump up, huh? Emily stood on the porch, paint-stained jeans and all. What do you want? Lori widened her eyes. That any way to greet family, Emily crossed her arms. You said this place was worthless. Lori laughed, brushing her hair behind one shoulder. Well, clearly I underestimated you. Or maybe Aunt Eleanor did. Maybe she left you something. More than we all thought. Emily didn't answer. Lori's tone sharpened. Come on, Em. You don't go from begging for grocery money to remodeling an estate overnight. What's really going on here? Emily stayed quiet. Lori stepped closer, her voice low. Whatever you found, it belongs to all of us. We're blood. That word tasted like rust in Emily's mouth. So was she. And you left her to rot. Lori's face darkened. You think this makes you better than us? No, Emily said calmly. It makes me different. Lori narrowed her eyes. Don't get too comfortable. Money makes people sloppy, and people talk. With that, she turned and walked back to her car, heels snapping like a warning shot. The next week, Uncle Howard called. Then cousins she hadn't heard from in a decade, all of them suddenly checking in. She ignored them all, but the weight of it settled in her chest like lead. She couldn't keep this quiet forever, and part of her didn't want to. She was tired of hiding, tired of being a footnote in her own family. That night after Caleb fell asleep in their tiny rental, Emily opened her notebook and drew a new line on her plan's Phase 2 staff. She needed help. Not just labor, but heart. People who understood what this place could become, who shared her vision. She thought of Miss Thelma Ray, the neighbor who used to watch Caleb for free when he was sick. She thought of Marcus, the contractor, who didn't overcharge even when he could have. She thought of Elena Vasquez, the social worker, who once helped Emily get childcare when she was working 3 jobs and drowning. These were people who knew struggle, and more than that, people who believed in rebuilding from it. She would reach out to them. But first she needed to make one thing clear: this house would not become a shrine to diamonds. It would be a home for the bruised, the tired, the ignored. The ones who, like her, had been told they were mistakes. She looked out the window. The moon hung low, casting silver over the bones of the forest. They were watching her now, those who had laughed, scoffed, written her off. Let them. She had work to do. Emily stood in what used to be the drawing room, staring at a section of exposed brick wall. The room smelled like fresh sawdust and new beginnings. Morning sun spilled through the brand new windows, casting light across the hardwood floor that Marcus and his crew had restored by hand. She never imagined this house could feel warm. But now it was starting to. Not just because of the renovations, but because of the people walking through its halls. Miss Thelma Ray sat on a stool in the corner, folding donated bed linens with military precision. At 72, she moved slower than she used to, but her eyes missed nothing. You're still not sleeping, Thelma said without looking up. I sleep fine, Emily replied. Lying was never your gift, baby. Emily smirked and went back to checking the to-do list pinned to the wall. Thelma was right, of course. She wasn't sleeping. Not well, anyway. There was too much to think about. Too many decisions stacked on top of one another. Every light fixture installed, every piece of furniture chosen, felt like a permanent decision. Every stone sold came with questions she wasn't ready to answer. A knock at the back door made her look up. Marcus stepped in, wiping grease from his hands. His work shirt clung with sweat, and his beard looked like it had caught some sawdust. Back generators in, wired up and ready. You'll have full backup power if the main cuts out. You're a miracle, Emily said. Nah, he said. Just a guy with a truck and no patience for shoddy wiring. She grinned. Close enough. As Marcus stepped out, Elena Vasquez says walked in arms full of file folders, her ponytail bouncing behind her. I've got preliminary drafts for intake procedures, privacy agreements, childcare, waivers, and a proposal for a part-time counselor, Elena said all in one breath. Also, the food pantry partnership came through. We'll get fresh produce twice a week. Emily blinked. Have you slept? Elena gave her a look. Have you, Touché? They gathered around the makeshift table Emily had set up in what would soon be the welcome room. Papers spread out like blueprints for something invisible but urgent. I've been thinking, Emily said slowly, about who this place is really for. Elena looked up. Single moms. Women starting over. You were clear on that from day one. I know, but I don't want it to be charity. Miss Thelma snorted from the corner. What's wrong with charity? Nothing, Emily said. But I don't want pity wrapped in free pillows. I want dignity. I want work trade programs, job training, a place where women don't just get help, they get purpose. Elena nodded. So we build a framework, skills exchange, employment assistance, childcare for work hours, access to legal services, and safe housing, Emily added, with locks that work and lights that stay on. The room fell quiet. Miss Thelma finally said, "You're not thinking small, are you?" Emily looked up. Her voice was steady, but her hands trembled just slightly. "I'm not here to get rich," she said. "I'm here to get even by doing better." Later that evening, after the others had left, Emily sat on the porch with a mug of cold coffee watching Caleb chase fireflies along the edge of the tree line. He laughed as one dodged his outstretched hand. He looked so free here, so safe. She closed her eyes for a moment and imagined a future where a dozen more kids ran barefoot across that same patch of grass. Kids who didn't know hunger or fear. Women who didn't flinch when doors closed behind them. The thought made her smile. Then headlights flashed at the bottom of the drive. Her stomach turned. The car parked just outside the gate engine still running. Emily stood, heart already in her throat. But it wasn't family. It was Mrs. Givens from the county permits office. She climbed out, clipboard in hand, a tight expression on her face. "I was in the area," she said. "No one's ever just in the area out here," Emily replied, not unkindly. Mrs. Givens sighed. "There's been some questions about funding, about ownership. People want to know where this is all coming from." Emily felt the heat rise in her cheeks. "Is it illegal to fix up what's yours? No. But you know small towns, people talk. And lately they're talking louder." Emily took a breath. "I can provide paperwork, inheritance, old life insurance policy." Mrs. Givens studied her for a long moment. Then she softened. "I'm not here to shut you down. Just be aware. The more visible this place gets, the more questions will come. Especially if certain people keep stirring the pot." Lori. It had to be. Emily nodded. "Thank you for the heads up." As Mrs. Givens drove off, Emily watched the dust settle in her wake. She knew it was only a matter of time before the storm hit full force. That night, she unlocked the vault again. Not to take anything, just to remind herself that it was still there. That it was real, that it was waiting, but also that she didn't need to fear it. Not anymore. The diamonds hadn't changed her. They'd revealed her. And soon she'd have to reveal the truth to the world too, before someone else tried to twist it first. She picked up a single stone and turned it in the light. So much power in something so small. She thought of Lori's voice, of Uncle Howard, of the family who ignored her until they smelled money on her skin. Let them come. She was ready now. And Bramble Ridge was almost ready too. Emily spotted the Lexus before it even turned onto the gravel. She was out front inspecting a delivery of donated bunk beds when the glint of polished chrome caught her eye through the trees. Her shoulders stiffened. There was only one person in this family who rolled up a dirt road in designer sunglasses and highway arrogance. Lori. The SUV rumbled slowly up the drive tires, crunching on gravel, until it parked in front of the porch like it belonged there. The door opened, and Lori stepped out in white heels, completely unsuited for the terrain. Emily bit back a grin as she watched them sink into the dirt. Lori adjusted her sunglasses like she was entering a resort and called out, "Well, isn't this cozy?" Emily didn't move. "You're not invited." Lori smiled sweetly, walking closer, ignoring the mud streaking her shoes. "Relax. I'm just checking in on family. Thought I'd see how you're settling into your little fixer-upper." Emily crossed her arms. "Is that what we're calling it now?" Lori's smile sharpened. "Well, I have to admit it's a lot more polished than I expected. New windows, fresh siding, contractors coming and going like bees. You've really outdone yourself. Almost like you had help." Emily stayed silent. Lori tilted her head. "Life insurance was it, or some old savings account you forgot about?" Emily's jaw tightened. "It's none of your business." "Oh, come on." Lori stepped up onto the porch, brushing dust off her slacks. "Let's not pretend. You were scraping by a few months ago, working nights begging for extensions on your utility bills. And now," she gestured around her, "now you're restoring family property like you're Joanna Gaines. You think people haven't noticed I don't owe you an explanation?" Lori leaned in slightly, lowering her voice. "You always smell like money before you show it, Emily. And honey, everyone around here's getting a good whiff." Emily turned her back and started organizing the box of donated blankets on the porch bench. Lori wasn't done. "You think Aunt Eleanor left you something that didn't belong to the rest of us?" she snapped. "You really think you're special, that she just woke up one day and decided the black sheep deserved the inheritance?" Emily glanced over her shoulder. "She didn't wake up. She planned it. Carefully." Lori laughed, but there was no humor in it. "You're holding something, and if you think for a second I'm going to let you keep it, you're not getting anything." "Lori," Emily said, spinning to face her, "because you never cared about this place until you thought it might be worth something." "It is worth something," Lori hissed, "and we both know it. I've already got a lawyer digging through the will." Emily's heart skipped. She kept her face calm. "Then he's wasting your money. The will's clear. She left it to me. The land, the house, everything on it." "And if I told the county you're sitting on undeclared assets," Lori asked, stepping forward. "Hidden valuables that you're laundering them through this little non-profit cover story?" Emily narrowed her eyes. "You're grasping." "I'm watching," Lori corrected. "And so is everyone else. Keep acting like the hero, Em. But this town, it eats heroes alive." Emily stood silent, grounded. The anger that once would have bubbled up inside her felt strangely muted now, replaced by something colder, sharper. She saw Lori for what she was: scared, threatened by something she couldn't control. A woman who built her whole sense of worth on being better than someone like Emily, and now had to face the truth that she wasn't. "You can sniff around all you want," Emily said calmly. "You won't find anything, because what I'm building here doesn't come with a price tag. It doesn't belong to the past, and it sure as hell doesn't belong to you." Lori stepped back like she'd been slapped. "You think this is over?" she spat. Emily didn't flinch. "I think it's just beginning." That night, Emily sat with Elena and Marcus at the kitchen table. Miss Thelma had taken Caleb home with her so Emily could focus. The mood in the room was tight, simmering. She came back, Marcus asked, stirring sugar into his coffee. "Right up the porch steps," Emily said. "Talking lawsuits, threats, you name it." Elena sighed. "If she's trying to stir up legal trouble, we need to get ahead of it. Make the nonprofit official. File the paperwork. Lock it all down tight." Emily nodded. "Agreed. I don't want to be reactive anymore. I want to be prepared. Marcus leaned back. You tell her about the vault. Emily shook her head. No. And I won't. That's not leverage, that's gasoline. Elena looked thoughtful. So what is the plan? Emily tapped her pen on the table. We legitimize everything. Make it public. Not the diamonds, but the mission. We hold an open house. Let the town see what this place is becoming. That way, when Lori starts yelling, it won't sound like truth. It'll sound like jealousy. Marcus grinned. You've got teeth now. I've got purpose, Emily said. She stood and looked out the kitchen window where the moonlight stretched across the empty field out back. One day that would be a garden, maybe even a playground. It was all starting to bloom piece by piece. But she knew this wasn't over. Lori would be back, and next time she wouldn't come alone. The dining room table had become a war room. Blueprints, legal documents, and grant applications were spread across it, like the battlefield Emily never wanted, but now had no choice but to lead. Elena was on her laptop, fingers flying. Marcus flipped through plumbing permits with a pencil tucked behind one ear. Miss Thelma Ray had claimed the head of the table with a thermos of coffee and a notebook full of names, people she knew in town who could be trusted. The storm was coming. Lori's threats weren't idle, and Emily could feel the shift in the air. Something sharp, inevitable. And so instead of running, they were preparing. I've registered the name, Elena said. Bramble Ridge Haven is now officially pending nonprofit status with the state of Tennessee. We'll file for federal tax exemption next. The sooner we start building partnerships, the harder it'll be for anyone to tear us down. Emily nodded, absorbing the words like armor. Let's make it official then. No more hiding. You're really gonna go public? Marcus asked. Emily didn't blink. I'm done playing defense. Miss Thelma looked up. That's a fine thing, baby. But public means visible, and visible means vulnerable. I know. Emily exhaled. But if we don't tell our story, Lori will do it for us and twist every word. They all nodded. Elena clicked through a few files and pulled up a draft press release. What do you want the mission statement to say? Emily looked out the window where Caleb and a few local kids were chasing each other through the grass. The sun had dipped low, painting the sky in strokes of peach and lavender. I want it to say we're not a shelter, she said. We're a second chance. For women like me who were told they were a burden. For mothers who got labeled mistake makers instead of survivors. For kids who've seen too much, too soon. Elena looked up. You want us to lead with empowerment. I want us to lead with truth. She stood, her voice clear and quiet, but full of fire. I'm not here to get rich. I'm here to get even by doing better. Marcus gave a soft whistle. That ought to go on the front gate. The next day, Emily drove to Nashville to meet with a private grant writer who specialized in women-led initiatives. With her were packets of before and after photos, progress reports, the nonprofit filing, and a carefully vague explanation of how the funding had begun, a small inheritance from a relative who wished to remain anonymous. She hated the lie, but it was safer than the truth. You've built a hell of a foundation, the grant writer said, after reviewing the documents. And I know just the people who'd want in on this. People who care about impact. Who care about stories like yours. Emily left the office with a folder full of opportunity and a belly full of dread. The more people who knew even a little, the greater the risk. But it wasn't just about protecting herself anymore. This place was bigger than her now. By the end of the week, Emily had her first real staff meeting. 6 women sat in a circle in what used to be Eleanor's parlor. Now it was filled with donated chairs, folding tables, and a corkboard covered in calendars and inspirational quotes. The smell of fresh paint still clung to the walls. Elena ran the orientation while Emily watched from the side, hands tucked in her sweatshirt pocket. There was Tracy, a mother of two escaping an abusive marriage. Carla, who had lost her housing after getting laid off and couldn't afford childcare. Jasmine, barely 21, 7 months pregnant, kicked out of her parents' house for refusing to give up the baby. Each woman carried the same weight Emily had once carried, the same exhaustion, the same cautious hope. She didn't see brokenness. She saw power waiting for a place to land. Afterward, as the women settled into their rooms, Emily sat alone in the hallway, back against the wall, listening to their laughter drift through the halls like music. And it hit her this was what the diamonds were meant to become. Not currency, not status, redemption. But peace didn't last. 2 days later, Marcus pulled up with a truckload of donated furniture and news. "They're talking, Em," he said, climbing out of the cab. "Lori's been going around town like a snake in silk, dropping hints, asking questions. She's stirring the pot hard." Emily closed her eyes. "What now?" She's saying you found something in the house, that you're hiding money, that this place is just a cover. "She's not wrong about the last part," Emily muttered, "but it's a hell of a good one. She's gunning for you, Em, and I don't think she's coming alone this time." Emily stared out at the gravel road. Her jaw tightened. "Let her come." "You sure?" She nodded slowly. "This place has roots now. She can't pull them up with gossip." But still, that night Emily unlocked the vault again. She didn't take anything, just stood there in the dim light surrounded by the glint of cold legacy. She touched the edge of the ledger on the desk. Her version was much longer now, pages of every stone sold, every dollar spent, every family helped. She was doing everything Eleanor asked. But the weight of that trust, of that gamble, was getting heavier. How long before Lori stopped whispering and started acting? How long before secrets became weapons? She closed the door and spun the lock. Heart pounding. It was almost time to tell the truth, before someone else told a lie louder. The envelope came on a Tuesday, tucked neatly into the mailbox, like it didn't carry a bomb inside. Emily pulled it out with one hand, balancing a carton of eggs in the other, and saw the return address: Collins, Beck and Monroe Attorneys at Law. She knew that firm. Old money, nasty clients, and expensive taste in vengeance. Inside the house, she dropped the eggs on the kitchen counter, tore the envelope open, and scanned the letter. Her eyes locked on the words in bold: cease and desist. A formal accusation of inheritance fraud. An allegation that she'd manipulated Eleanor Whitaker, a woman of advancing age and compromised judgment, into rewriting her will. A demand that she halt all financial activities, property development, or nonprofit operations involving Bramble Ridge immediately. Her pulse thudded in her ears. She read it again. Then again. Then finally, she laughed, bitter and sharp. Of course, she whispered. Of course she went legal. An hour later, she was pacing the living room, the letter spread across the coffee table. Elena and Marcus sat on the couch, eyes scanning the contents, while Miss Thelma Ray hovered by the window like a sentry. "She's accusing you of coercion," Elena said, saying Eleanor was mentally compromised. "Eleanor was more lucid than anyone I've ever met," Emily snapped. She could recite land boundaries from memory. She knew exactly what she was doing when she wrote that will. "Doesn't matter," Marcus muttered. "All they need is doubt." Emily dropped onto the arm of the couch, rubbing her temples. "We can't stop construction. We just opened the doors." You don't have to, Elena said, flipping pages. This isn't a court order. It's a threat dressed in legalese. A very expensive one. She's hoping I'll back down, Emily said. Or burn out, Miss Thelma added. People like Lori, they don't want justice. They want control. And they hate when someone from their past comes back stronger. There was a long silence. Then Elena asked, do we respond? Emily stood and grabbed her keys. No, we don't give her that satisfaction. Where are you going? Marcus asked. Emily's voice was ice, to remind her who she's dealing with. Lori was at the golf club sipping a mimosa on the patio like nothing in the world could touch her. Emily marched across the pristine lawn in work boots and dirt-streaked jeans, drawing stares as she went. Lori looked up from her table and her smile curved like a blade. Well, you clean up exactly the same. Emily slapped the letter on the table. This is pathetic. Lori took a sip from her glass. It's legal. It's desperate, Emily said. You're afraid. You see something you can't control and you panic. I see something that doesn't belong to you, Lori replied coolly. And I'm not the only one. Uncle Howard, Aunt May, this isn't just me anymore. They didn't want the house when it was falling apart, Emily said. They left it to rot. They treated Eleanor like a ghost. And now they want it back, Lori said. Because you're turning it into something. You're making it worth something. Emily leaned in, voice low and fierce. Family didn't want the house when it was haunted. Now they want it holy. But I'm not giving it up. Lori's smile didn't reach her eyes. We'll see. Back at Bramble Ridge, the weight of the letter lingered like smoke. Emily gathered the women that evening, staff, residents, supporters, and told them the truth. About the house, about the vault, about the money, about why she'd kept it secret. She expected pushback, fear, maybe even anger. Instead, she got silence, and then applause. Jasmine, the youngest resident, stood up first. You could have run, she said. You didn't. You stayed. You built this. So screw them. Tracy nodded. You didn't steal anything. You gave it meaning. Even Miss Thelma, always blunt, wiped a tear from her eye. About time someone turned old blood money into a blessing. Emily smiled, heart cracking open. She'd spent so long preparing for war, she'd forgotten what it felt like to be backed by an army. The next morning, a man knocked at the front gate. He was tall, older, with sunburned skin and a crooked smile. He wore a sheriff's badge pinned to his belt. Bo Jenkins. He'd been around since before Emily was born. The kind of lawman who knew everyone's grandmother and didn't trust digital clocks. He came bearing no warrant, no threat, just concern. Saw the papers, he said. Word spreading. Emily nodded. So you're here to warn me, I'm here to ask you, Bo said. You hiding anything that had put those women in danger? No, Emily said without hesitation. But I am protecting something that others might want for the wrong reasons. Bo scratched his chin. I figured. And I got no love for rich folks trying to buy back their shame. Just keep it tight. Don't let their noise become your signal. Emily appreciated that. Bo turned to leave, then paused. You know this town's seen a lot of ghosts. But maybe what you're doing here, maybe that's the first exorcism we ever needed. That night, Emily opened the vault again. She looked at the diamonds not as currency, but as evidence. Of pain, of silence, of everything Eleanor had swallowed so the next generation could breathe. She pulled out one stone, just one, and placed it in a glass box on the mantel above the fireplace in the main hallway. No plaque, no name, just light catching on something once buried. and now reborn. The official court summons arrived in a plain white envelope tucked between the electric bill and a coupon flyer like it didn't carry the weight of an avalanche. Emily opened it on the porch, the morning sun still low behind the trees. She read the first line in the matter of the estate of Eleanor M. Whitaker and knew right away this was no bluff. Lori had escalated. The letter demanded she appear in probate court within 30 days, accused of undue influence, misappropriation of inherited assets, and fraudulent operation of a charitable entity for personal gain. Emily sat down hard on the porch steps, the paper trembling in her hands. Inside the house, Caleb called from the kitchen, "Mom, can I have cereal?" Her voice cracked. "Yeah, baby. Go ahead." She folded the letter, slid it back into the envelope, and pressed her forehead against her knees. They were trying to take everything, not just the diamonds, not just the house, everything. By noon, the kitchen had become a crisis room again. Elena was pacing, reading the summons over and over. Marcus leaned against the fridge with crossed arms, silent. "I've seen court filings like this before," Elena said. "It's messy, it's aggressive, but it's not unbeatable." "They're going after my name," Emily said. "If they win, I lose the house, the nonprofit, maybe even custody. If they can prove I exploited Eleanor." "They can't prove something that didn't happen," Marcus said. "But we do need a real attorney, a good one." "I know someone," Elena said. "She's based in Memphis. Fierce, brilliant, pro bono, but only for the right cases." "Call her," Emily said. Then Caleb came around the corner holding his bowl of cereal in one hand, his face pale. "Are we going to lose our home again?" he asked softly. Emily's heart shattered. She knelt in front of him, brushing his hair back. "No, baby. I promise. We're not losing anything. Not this time." He looked down. "They're mad, huh?" "They're scared," Emily said, "because they see something strong and kind and real, and they don't know what to do with it." Caleb nodded, then walked away, clutching his cereal like armor. The next day, the lawyer arrived. Her name was Asha Reed. She was tall, black, sharp-eyed, and wore a gray blazer like a sword. "I've reviewed the documents," she said. "This case is a powder keg wrapped in family spite and generational resentment. But from what I can see, you're not the thief here." Emily smiled weakly. "Glad someone believes me." "Believe you?" Asha sat across from her. "I represent you. That means I don't blink when the bullets come. I catch them." Emily let out a shaky breath. Asha flipped through a folder. "We're going to countersue. Defamation, intentional interference. And we're going to prove that Eleanor Whitaker had full mental capacity and left you the property for a reason. I'll need access to the will, her medical records, and anyone who can testify to her state of mind. Elena, Miss Thelma, Reverend Carter," Emily said immediately. "They all knew her. They all know what she wanted," Good, Asha said. "Now let's talk about the diamonds." Emily froze. "You didn't list them as part of the estate," Asha continued. "That's going to be their angle, hidden assets. Potential theft." "I didn't steal them," Emily said. "They were in a hidden basement vault. She never told anyone but me, not even her lawyer. She wanted them used for something good." "Can you prove that?" Emily reached into a drawer and pulled out Eleanor's old notebook. Inside, in faded ink, were entries detailing the vault, its purpose, its contents, its secrets. Asha flipped through it, eyebrows raised. "Well, damn. That's your smoking gun. Will it be enough?" Asha looked her dead in the eye. "If you trust me to fight with it, yes." As the legal team prepared, something unexpected happened. People in the community began to speak out. The local paper ran a profile on Bramble Ridge Haven, from ashes to refuge. Photos of the house under renovation, quotes from resident staff, even a blurb from Bo Jenkins. "She's not building a charity," he'd said. "She's building a second chance." Donations began to trickle in. Food, furniture, volunteers. Then a local news station aired a short segment, and suddenly people were paying attention. Emily received letters from women across the state, survivors, single moms, social workers. Some wanted to help. Others just wanted to say thank you. It was overwhelming, but it was also fortifying. For the first time, Emily realized this wasn't just her fight anymore. This was a movement. But then came the vandalism. 3 windows smashed overnight. A slur scrawled in red paint across the porch: fraud. Caleb screamed when he saw it. Emily rushed out barefoot, heart pounding. Marcus and 2 volunteers cleaned it up before the sheriff even arrived. But the message was clear: not everyone wanted Bramble Ridge to survive. Later that night, Emily stood on the front porch, arms crossed, watching the wind sway through the trees. Miss Thelma stepped beside her. "You gonna let 'em rattle you?" "No," Emily said. "You scared?" "Yes," Emily said honestly. "But not for me." She looked back at the glowing windows behind her. They don't get to win. Not this time. Emily sat in the courtroom, fingers clenched around the edge of the chair, every breath shallow and deliberate. Asha stood beside her like a shield forged in human form, flipping through their trial folder one last time. On the other side of the room, Lori sat smug in a navy blue pantsuit, flanked by 2 sharp-suited men from Collins Beck and Monroe. One of them caught Emily's eye and smirked like this was already won. The probate judge entered with a rustle of robes and a gavel tap. Everyone stood. Everyone sat. And just like that, her entire life was on trial. The first half of the hearing was mechanical. Documents entered into evidence. Objections volleyed and ruled on. Asha's voice cut through the room like steel wrapped in silk, but Emily felt herself drifting, floating above it all, watching her past unravel in public. Then the judge called her name. She rose slowly, walked to the stand, took the oath, and sat facing the courtroom like a cliff edge. Ms. Whitaker, one of Lori's attorneys, began emphasizing the name with contempt. How long had your great-aunt been in declining health before she signed the revised will? She wasn't in decline, Emily replied. She was sharp. She walked the property. She argued politics. She didn't even take daily medication. But no medical oversight, no psychiatric evaluations, he asked. She didn't need them. You're not a doctor, are you, Ms. Whitaker? No, she said. He smiled faintly. Then forgive me if I prefer paperwork to anecdotes. Asha objected, sustained, but the damage was done. Doubt doesn't need proof, just enough wind to shake a branch. They grilled her for an hour, about Eleanor's state of mind, about her own finances before inheriting the house, about the origin of the funds used to renovate it. She answered everything calmly, but inside it felt like drowning. Finally, it was Asha's turn. Emily, she said gently, can you tell the court why Eleanor chose you? Emily took a breath, steadying her voice. She didn't choose me because I was family. She chose me because I saw the house not as a burden, but as a beginning. She knew what this place could be if someone loved it the way she once did. And the vault, Asha asked, eyes locking with hers. I didn't know it existed until after she passed. She told me about it in a sealed letter left with the will. I found the diamonds, and instead of hiding them, I built this. She gestured to the photos of Bramble Ridge tacked to a presentation board behind Asha. A place for women like me, for kids like mine. She gave me the tools. I gave them meaning. Asha let the silence settle like dust. Then she asked, "Did you steal anything? No. Did you manipulate her? No. Did you love her? Yes." It wasn't loud, but it was the loudest truth in the room. Later that evening, back at the house, Emily collapsed onto the couch, still in her court-clothes shoes, kicked halfway across the room. Caleb crawled into her lap and curled into her like he was 5 again. "I missed you today," he mumbled. "I missed you too, buddy. Did the judge believe you? I hope so." He looked up at her wide-eyed. "We're not going to lose the house, right?" She didn't answer right away. Then, "No, baby." "We're not." But she wasn't sure. Not yet. That night, Emily couldn't sleep. She wandered the halls like a ghost, checking locks, peeking into the dorm rooms where the women slept safe and soft. It grounded her even as the anxiety crept in. Finally, she found herself in front of the vault door again. She hesitated, then opened it. She wasn't sure what she was looking for, reassurance, closure, but what she found was neither. Behind a stack of old ledgers buried in dust was a slim, weathered envelope, her name on the front, written in Eleanor's shaky hand. Emily's breath caught. She opened it. Inside was a single page. "Emily, if you found the vault, it means I trusted you enough to keep digging. What I couldn't tell the others, I leave for you to carry. But know this, what's down here doesn't belong to me. It never did. It belongs to the ones who were used, the ones who were silenced, the ones this family profited from while looking away. Let them whisper if they must. But the past isn't done with you until you tell the truth loud enough for it to stop whispering. There's one more piece, a second will, one I wrote before the lawyers touched anything. It's hidden behind the old breaker box. Do what you must, but don't let them bury the truth." Eleanor Emily sat down hard on the vault floor, tears pooling in her eyes. A second will. She shot to her feet, crossed to the breaker panel in the back wall. The box hadn't worked in years, replaced by modern wiring. She unscrewed the rusted cover, and there it was. Folded. Faded. But real. She opened it with trembling fingers. It named Emily as sole beneficiary not just of the house but of the entire estate, including all undisclosed family holdings and historical assets associated with the Whitaker family legacy. It was dated 6 months before the official will, signed and notarized, and it changed everything. The next morning, she placed the second will on Asha's desk. Asha looked it over, then let out a low whistle. "This is gold. We submit it immediately." With this, Lori doesn't just lose, she gets exposed. "Are we ready for that?" Emily asked quietly. Asha looked her in the eyes. "You tell me." Emily thought about the house, the women, Caleb, the fire in Eleanor's words, and finally she nodded. Yes. The courtroom was different this time. Not colder, warmer somehow. Brighter. The press had shown up. A local TV crew sat in the back row. Every seat was filled with townspeople, some Emily knew by name, others only by the shape of their judgmental stares. But she didn't flinch. She walked to the stand with her head high, the second will already entered into evidence, Asha at her side like a lighthouse in fog. Lori sat across the room, visibly unraveling. Her suit wasn't tailored this time. Her lawyer looked tired. There were whispers now about the family fortune, about the hidden diamonds, about what had really been buried beneath the house on Bramble Ridge. Emily took the oath, sat, faced the jury. Asha stepped forward. Emily, we've gone over the facts, the documents, the legacy. But today I want to ask one question.